Big Conversations, Little Bar, with your hosts Randy Florence and Patrick Evans, featuring candid conversations with the Coachella Valley's most interesting and influential people. Pull up a bar stool and enjoy Big Conversations, Little Bar.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Big Conversations, Little Bar. My name is Patrick Evans, and I am joined by my co-host and humanitarian extraordinaire, Randy Florence.
It is so good to be here with you, Patrick, again at the center of the Coachella Valley universe at Little Bar in Palm Desert. Skip Page, once again, thank you for letting us have the corner booth here.
You know, it's really pretty remarkable. We sat at the bar having cheeseburgers, which, by the way, it's the best $9 cheeseburger you're going to get anywhere. And we were talking about doing a podcast, and Skip overheard us. And he said, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I said, well, we should do it right here. And Randy, you were like...
I thought it was more like Skip said, you're going to do it over there.
Oh. Well, we were concerned. We thought maybe Skip would be resistant, but he was militant about it. He said, absolutely, we're going to do it right here.
At first, we thought he was just trying to get us away from the bar over to the corner booth, but it turned out he had bigger plans for us.
No, he's an amazing host, and he and his entire staff here are always really kind to us and very welcoming, and we're very lucky to be able to do it. We wanted this atmosphere for the podcast. And we started out thinking about it was going to be a music-based podcast. It's morphed into more than that, but today...
We're getting back to the original premise.
It is a music-based podcast. Randy, introduce our guest.
I am so excited to introduce this guest because I discovered the other day I first saw him in 1975. Andy Cahan is our guest today, and he may be better known to a lot of you out there as the most famous musician that you have never heard of. Andy, thank you for being here today.
This is wonderful.
This is really fantastic.
Very excited.
So I have to touch on that really quickly.
Yes.
In 1975, you were playing with a couple of gentlemen at that time known as Flo and Eddie, but previously had been known as
the Turtles.
The Turtles. And this was at a concert in Fresno, California,
wow,
which I constantly have to remind Patrick I lived in at some point.
It is the city in California that answers its own question. Fresno. Sorry. If there are people from Fresno, I'm just kidding.
The only thing we had to make fun of was Bakersfield. So, Andy, thank you for being here.
Oh, this is wonderful. I mean, Patrick has been extremely generous with me and putting up with my bugging. But, I'll tell you, I was on your show 5 times already. With the other girls and with you. I love your show.
Well, and a couple of those ended up on air, didn't they?
Yeah, we put a few of them on there. Andy always has some, Andy has an enormous history, and people should buy his book. I'm just going to plug his book right up front. And you just did. The most famous musician you've never heard of, Andy Cahan. But the stories in the book are amazing. It's not just the people that you played with or the working gigs. It was kind of the relationships you had and the weird experiences you had. I mean, like, things just sort of happened to you along the way.
Yeah.
And that's why the book is fascinating. So you can buy the book at Amazon.com or wherever you find books.
The most amazing musician you've never heard of. So before
we get famous musician.
What did I say? Greater Palm Springs.
Amazing, famous.
The most famous musician you've never heard of.
We're going to have to start writing things down for you.
You sure?
I got to start taking notes.
That's right.
But let's go back. So this book is like a giant scrapbook.
It is.
Of your life. But it starts at some place that I thought was really interesting. You were considering yourself, maybe you didn't know who he was at that time, but you were kind of a young Steven Spielberg as a youth. Tell us what you were doing then.
Well, I loved classical music, and I had a 8mm Brownie camera, and it did single frame shooting. So I made a movie with my friends in the neighborhood at 13 years old. I made a movie called The Mad Magician, and the room spins around by me taking single frames and turning the camera.
Wow.
So it spun the room, and I was 13 years old making these movies. And I loved De Meistersinger and Flying Dutchman Overture and The Rite of Spring and all these wonderful classical pieces that I made sound movies. I had a Kodak Sound 8 projector, 1963, and I would put this classical music in behind Frankenstein, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Revenge from Planet 4, and The Smugglers. So these are all 8mm sound movies I made, and I was a little Steven Spielberg.
Did you want to be a movie director?
Absolutely. I loved it. I was amazed at it.
So how did you suddenly change your kind of track and go into this incredible music career that you've enjoyed?
My sister said there's a group coming on the Ed Sullivan Show February 9th, 1964, or February 8th. And so, like everybody else, I watched the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And right from that point, right there, I wanted to be a Beatle. I said to myself, the girls aren't going to go screaming at me if I'm making monster movies, but if I'm a Beatle, then the girls will scream at me.
And were you playing any instruments at that point?
Yeah, I played keyboards and drums.
Okay.
How many instruments do you play?
I play a guitar, bass, keyboard, and drums.
And what's your favorite keyboard?
I love keyboard, but I really love the drums.
Really?
I really do. I love the drums.
Now, but you do more work on the keyboards. Throughout your career, you've always done more work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just something that, from the Beatles, I started my own band, and I went to get a perma-straight because I had curly hair. So I perma-straighted my hair to make it look like a Beatle haircut, and it worked for about an hour. And then after that, it just blew up into this big frizz ball.
That's right.
I love that.
If there was any humidity.
I know, it's crazy. So that was my start to
But
the
you
Beatles.
decided early on that musicians get all the chicks. That was your motivation.
That was my motivation.
I like an honest man. That's
but
good
you can
motivation.
ask a lot of guys about that. I
Yes.
think they'll say the same thing.
That's why I had to
100%.
get out of music.
Too many girls.
No, none followed me.
When
And
you were the stick shifts,
Captain Slick and his stick shifts.
And you
Oh,
were
that
Captain
is so
Slick.
cool.
Isn't that a great name?
That's great.
Yeah. I was Captain Slick. How successful was I? I was in banking for 39 years after that. So
you still are Captain Slick. Just ask Scott White from the Greater Palm Springs
that's true.
organization.
Was the Jaguars your first band?
Yes.
And what was your first performance?
Oh, it was
Public.
a graduation party.
And what did you play?
I played the Farfisa Combo Compact. It's this cheesy organ that everybody used, Come On Down to My Boat Baby and 96 Tears and all these, the Paul Revere. A lot of people use this cheesy organ sound. Even Elton John used it on Crocodile Rock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
it was sort of like you had that sound, but you had like in jazz and kind of standards, you hear the Hammond organ, which was very big.
I was extremely impressed by Felix Cavalieri with the Hammond B3.
Yeah, the Hammond B3.
And that was like huge.
Which, by the way, is featured prominently in Summerwind on the Stranger Than Night album by Frank Sinatra.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah. The Hammond B3 is a big part of that.
I'll have to listen to it someday.
Yeah.
So
Have
I
you heard of Frank Sinatra? He was kind of big. He was a big deal.
Is that his first name, Frank?
I understand.
Francis to you, sir.
And you sing Frank Sinatra, don't you?
Poorly, but I do. I like to.
That's good. Yes.
So you had this cheesy little organ thing, but it was portable. Like it was easy to.
It was
get
heavy, but it was portable.
Yeah.
And I played left-hand bass. The notes were actually different colored. They were black against white instead of white against black. So I went to in New York City, Manny's Music Store, very popular, famous, and I had the guy hook up a Hammond Leslie speaker to my Farfisa organ. So I had a bass amp, and he wired my left-hand bass going through the bass amp.
Wow.
And then the right hand went through the Leslie speaker. And this is 1965, and that was very advanced for those days.
Are you left-handed? Was there a reason you did that?
Well, no, I play bass. It was just a trio.
Got it.
Guitar, bass, guitar, keys, and drums. And the lead singer was just up front with his tambourine.
Captain Slick.
Captain Slick.
Captain Slick was the tambourine.
So,
So you were a big classical music guy as a kid.
yes.
So and you saw the Beatles and it changed your life, but I mean, the bulk of your work has all been in kind of classic rock and roll. How did you make that jump? Like,
With classical, you're not getting a lot of women there.
Yeah.
Were you?
What?
Classical music that you switched to rock and roll for the ladies,
Yeah,
right?
for the yes. But
Just wanted to be clear what his motivation was.
I think we've established, but I think so. Yo-Yo Ma, the chicks dig him. I'm telling you right now.
So I want to find out, because I want to get into this.
Okay.
The names in this book are phenomenal.
It's incredible. Yeah.
You drop a lot of names in the book.
Yeah. Who was the first one that we've heard of that you started
Jimi
playing?
Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix. Talk about that, please.
My lead singer stole my movie camera that I made all these movies with, and he went to a hawk shop and he sold my movie camera.
No way.
The lead singer in my band. So I got really angry, and I called up.
Rightfully so.
I called up his girlfriend. I said, "Would you like to go to California with me?" And she said, "Sure."
So he stole your camera and you stole
His girlfriend in revenge. Yes.
Was it an even swap?
Pretty even.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
The movie camera made the room look upside down.
Lasted a lot longer.
I don't think that's right.
Yeah, so to make a long story short, I moved out to California with this girl.
So you were in New York,
Yeah, and then we drove out to California.
and
But-
did you go right to Los Angeles? You just decided got to get right in the heart of it.
Well, we got detoured in Oklahoma. Her job was to reach in the glove compartment and pull out money and pay at a gas station.
Yeah.
She forgot in Oklahoma. So 2 Oklahoma highway patrols pulled us over.
You stole gas in Oklahoma.
Yes,
is
we
what you're
stole
saying.
gas.
Okay.
And
What
so
happened?
we were arrested and put in jail, and my hair was long, so they gave me a child's pair of rounded scissors
No.
and the back of a frying pan, and in jail I had to cut all my hair off, and that was the only way I could speak to the judge. So once I cut all my hair off, then they handed me the phone, and the judge says, "How much money you got on you, boy?" And I said, $75. He says, "Pay the man." Click.
Wow.
So they released me and my lead singer's girlfriend, and
No, now she's your girlfriend.
yeah, and then
Until she forgot to pay the gas.
then I had to walk a couple of miles to Western Union to ask my mom to mail me money so I can get to California and get my bus out of Impound. So that was my trip to L.A. from New York.
So did you guys remain together when you got to California?
Yes, until the neighbor was until I caught a neighbor in bed with her.
And that's where you
So-
draw the line.
And that's where I kicked her out.
Like a good neighbor?
Oh,
no, that's
well.
not a good neighbor.
But-
that's
but-
a bad neighbor.
That's a bad
so, wait,
neighbor.
So yeah,
but-
let me
but-
finish the
but-
story. Yeah.
Please.
I mean, that you had to see that coming because you just offered her a trip to California. She jumped in with you. So at some point, she was going to jump in with somebody else.
She needed a ride back.
Yeah, you got to expect that, right?
All right. So what happened there after?
So anyway, my mom was really good friends with Irwin Garr, who was at ABC Dunhill with the Mamas and Papas, and so he started his own label called Pulsar Records with Dr. John the Night Tripper and Graham Bond, who had the Graham Bond organization with Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce before the Cream.
Wow.
So he was a blues guy, and he came to the United States. And my job as a gopher for this record company was, picking up musicians and taking them to the session.
So that was the job you got when you got to California?
Yep,
was the
$35 a week.
to be a gopher.
Be a gopher.
Not playing any instrument.
I was trying to play instruments.
Of course.
I had the harpsichord at this time, and the harpsichord was going through the Leslie speaker. It was very psychedelic. So Graham Bond calls me up and he says, "Come on, we'll get a jam session. Bring your harpsichord." So I pick him up. We go to TTG Studios in Hollywood, and Mitch Mitchell is setting up the drums, and Jack Cassidy from Jefferson Airplane is on the bass, and Lowell George was playing the flute.
And did you know all these people?
Yeah,
were
I recognized them all. I mean, I was 20 years old in this studio with these, and Graham Bond was on the organ, and then I felt something behind me, and Jimi Hendrix walks in with two blonde chicks, one carrying his amp and one carrying his guitar, and he sets up.
Was one of them your girlfriend?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. But so he sat down right next to me, and he tuned up, and we did the blues in A for like 2 hours, and he dug the harpsichord going through the Leslie. It was really a good session.
When was that?
1968, September.
So this is before Woodstock.
Yeah. Wait, when was Woodstock?
It's a great question.
68?
We got to Google it.
I just wondered if Jimmy had done his Star-Spangled Banner at Woodstock.
Yeah, he probably did. Because what year did he die? I forgot that too. 70 or 71. One of the same year as Jim Morrison and
Woodstock
Janis
was
Joplin.
1969, so this was
69.
prior to
his death.
Prior to Woodstock.
It was August of 1969 was Woodstock. So
Wow.
this is before that.
And
Wow.
did you realize his brilliance at that point?
I was in shock.
All right, so you're a gopher for this record company. What's the next step? Where did you go from there?
So after that Jimi Hendrix recording session, Graham Bond called me up and said, Buddy Miles is doing a concert at Del Mar Racetrack, and he usually has two drummers. And he says, do you know of a drummer? Because his other drummer's sick, can't make it. So here I am, 20 years old. I don't own a drum set, but there's one on the stage. So I played a gig with Buddy Miles a couple of weeks
you just
after.
told Buddy, I'm a drummer, I can do this.
Yeah, and I just followed him.
Because Buddy doesn't know anything about music, so you could fool him.
So I just followed whatever he did, down, 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 whatever it was, and so that was my second exciting moment moving to L.A. Jimi Hendrix, then Buddy Miles, and
it was all downhill from there.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And then I went on the road with Dr. John the Night Tripper, and we went to Steve Paul's The Scene in New York. We had two VW buses.
So you went back home?
Yeah, I went back home. I took Dr. John over to my mom's house, and she cooked us dinner and stuff.
Nice. What'd you make?
Probably pasta. Yeah. And,
you didn't take the girlfriend back at that point.
No, she was gone.
That was way.
She was with the neighbor at that point.
Right. Yeah.
She hooked up with the neighbor.
She had moved
point.
upstairs.
Waved to her out in the backyard.
Hey, look, it was the 60s, and there was a lot of that going on. It was just like...
So you're 20 years old.
I'm 20 years old, playing this gig with Dr. John in New York City.
And you had just gotten done playing with Jimi Hendrix.
Right, 2 weeks prior.
Holy moly! Did you have an appreciation for what was happening?
I was in a fantasy. It was too amazing for me to. So we're here at this club in New York City, and backstage is Ginger Baker and Eric Clapton and John Bonham and Booker T.
Wow.
So during the show, John Bonham comes up and sits at the drums, and I'm on stage with John Bonham. Then Booker T comes up and plays the organ, and then Graham Bond got on the guitar. So here I am jamming with these incredible people at 20 years old. So, this is the kind of stuff that...
Were you feeling like you could keep up with them at that point?
Yeah, it
good.
was great. It was wonderful.
How was you took somebody back to dinner with your mom. How'd Mom feel about this?
She
path you were
supported me
taking?
1,000,000%.
Did she? That's awesome.
She loved it. In fact, when I had my band, she sewed our uniforms. She was a seamstress, and she made our Nehru blue jackets.
Nice.
With the turtleneck and the beetle boots and the black. And actually, she was such a good seamstress. Is that how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
Anyway,
Don't ask Randy. He can't say Greater Palm Springs.
Don't make it more than one word.
Okay. But, my mom was so good at this that a girlfriend came over, and she had one of those ripped on purpose jackets. They were purposely had rips in it.
Like the jeans today. The kids all wear.
So we go out to the movies, and she leaves the jacket on the couch. So what does my mom do? She sewed up all the rips of the jacket.
Thinking she was helping.
Thinking she's helping.
I love that.
And then we come back from the movies, and then the girl breaks down and cries, "What have you done to my jacket?" And so my mom had to undo all the stitching and give her a jacket back the way it was. So this is crazy, All
right, so
yes.
Following that. Now, what was like your most steady gig? Throughout your career, if you look back and say, okay, this was the thing I did the most, and it was
40 years with the Turtles.
40 years.
40. 1973 till 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look, I've known you for a long time. I didn't know it was a 40-year gig.
Yeah, I joined him in 73.
That's really cool.
And at the same time I joined them, Little Richard hired me. So I would go out on the road with the Turtles, come back, go out on the road with Little Richard, come back, go out on the Turtles. We went to Australia. Little Richard, we went to Australia and New Zealand and did the tour. Then the Turtles did Australia 2 times. So that was really amazing.
So I saw this in the book where you at various times you were playing with more than one person at the time. Was that more common back then? That
it was just luck, I guess. It's just the way
everybody wanted you to play with them.
Yeah. It was great. It was really great.
What was as you were coming up through the rock and roll scene, you probably had a vision of what you hoped it would be as you got bigger and more popular, but was there anything about the business that kind of shocked you on a daily basis about what you had to do just to be successful?
At that time, I don't even remember how I got jobs. I mean, I don't know how I survived without a cell phone or a laptop. Wow. This is like...
It seems to me like you were just playing one place, somebody saw you and said, I mean, it seemed like it was one jam session to another.
It was word of mouth.
Yeah. Did you have management?
Nope, I did everything myself.
Wow. Well, now you did tell me.
Oh, yeah.
At one point, you were signed with William Shatner's manager.
Yeah, we cut a demo, and it was really, really good. And somebody had recommended him, and I spoke to him, and I signed a deal with him. But then he never followed up. He never did anything.
So he didn't do anything for you?
No.
Well, I'm glad we brought that up.
Yeah, that was great. That's a great story.
Any more good stories like that? Any other people that you wanted to work with that you couldn't?
Oh, well,
No.
Talk about the Ringo Starr story.
Oh, okay. Well, this is great because it's a premonition. I'm sitting in my 1968 home with my harpsichord just playing. And then all of a sudden I got a premonition that a Beatle was in my house. Not only was he in my house, but he was sitting next to me with his shoes off. Right? This is a premonition.
Specific vision.
1968 in my playing the harpsichord. Then in 1992, I became really good friends with Harry Nilsson, and he got Ringo Starr to come over my house. And it was 100 degrees out, and so we had to turn off the air conditioner so it wouldn't get picked up on the mic. He was doing children's stories. So Ringo sits in a chair right next to me, and then he takes his shoes off. So the premonition back in 1968 came true.
Well, it was
a Beatle was in my house.
34 years later.
Yeah. And there he was. A Beatle was in my house with his shoes off. And that was the premonition I had.
So did you continue a relationship with Ringo, or was it just kind of a one-off?
No.
Once he took his shoes off, it was like, I'm done.
Put your shoes on, man. Show some respect.
Well, Harry took me over to Ringo's house twice. So I was there twice. And Barbara Bach. And
Ringo's
all that.
wife.
And she called him Rich. She didn't call him Ringo. She called him Rich. Hey, Rich.
Was that based on his bank account? Or?
I bet you it's a Ringo sense of humor. You know, he's the one who thought of Hard Day's Night and 8 Days a Week. That was his. His thinking.
Barbara Bach was what, in 10,000 BC. Was that the movie?
Oh, that was Raquel Welch. She was in James Bond. I forgot which one.
She was in a James Bond movie.
I forgot which one. Yeah.
Well, when we have Barbara on, we'll find out what.
I look forward to having her on.
So
Harry Nilsson.
Yes.
You had a very special relationship with Harry to the point where he wrote a song about you.
Yes, he did write a song about me called Rescue Boy. Because when I met Harry, it was a radio show with Flo and Eddie. It was K-Rock.
From the Turtles.
Yes. K-Rock after Howard Stern in New York.
Yeah.
So Flo and Eddie had a Universal City, Alice Cooper, Clarence Clemens Oktoberfest, and they had 40 radio stations in tents set up at the amphitheater. So all the satellite trucks and 40 tents. So all these amazing celebrity musicians are piling in to interview at each tent. And my job was to drive a limo and pick up the celebrity, take him to the tent. I had my keyboard, and we do Happy Together, and then we do the artist's hit. So I picked up Harry Nilsson, and that was like incredible. I was in shock.
You were a big fan at that point?
Yeah, because I'm a Beatle fan, and Harry's a Beatle.
Yeah, he's the fifth Beatle.
Yeah. Besides George Martin and
also the
Billy
fifth
Preston.
And Billy Preston and all that.
Billy Preston was the
fifth Beatle.
Yeah, but was he the original drummer?
Billy Preston was the keyboard player.
George Best was the original drummer. Billy Preston was a keyboard player.
Right.
What Beatle were you, Randy?
Captain Slick. Captain Slick and Paul McCartney.
Captain Slick and the Beatles. Captain Slick and Wings.
Let's get back to Andy.
What was I just talking about?
You're talking about doing in the tent.
In the tent. So here I am with Harry Nilsson and Flo and Eddie, and we do a song by the Dillards, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm going to take Harry home, and he invites me over to his company called Hawkeye, which was a script development company for motion picture and television, and he was running that company, and he sold his guitar and he sold his piano and he stopped playing music.
He got out of me. I had no idea.
And so I said to him, "What? You sold your guitar? Why are you doing that? Come on over to my house. We'll do a song a day and have some fun and write music." And he says, "Okay." So we became really close friends, and for the last 4 years of his life, we'd record 35 songs in my living room.
Wow.
And then finally, of course, he invited Ringo over because I was a big Beatle fan and he wanted to make me happy. So he did.
What was the inspiration for the song that he wrote about you?
Okay. So the lyrics are about a guy helping him out to get him back into music. And that's exactly what happened because he stopped doing music and I brought him back into it again.
So what year was that?
1990.
Okay, so you're in the middle of your work with the Turtles. So you're still playing regularly and doing tours and so forth.
With the Turtles while I'm recording with Harry. Yeah.
And so you really kind of led him back.
Yeah, I brought him back into it again. And that was actually the very last song we recorded before he passed away. And Mark Hudson from the Hudson Brothers, he was there at this recording session.
Wow.
So
he's not the one that married...
that was his brother married
somebody. Goldie, that's it.
Right. So anyways...
We're trying to clue you in on all the background in all these bands. The Hudson Brothers. They had a great TV show for a little while.
Oh, yeah. But
was it like the Smothers Brothers? Them I remember.
It wasn't as funny.
Okay.
So I asked Harry, would you sing one of my songs? And he says, "Okay, I'll make you a deal. You do a song for me and I'll sing one of your songs." So I did a song called I Know Why. Glenn Miller, I know why the first December. So I programmed this thing with the trumpets and all the instrument, for the Glenn Miller stuff. And Harry sang it, and it came out great. And that was really cool. Then he sang the song I wrote called Cahan. And he lost his voice when he did the Pussycats album with John Lennon. John was doing the primal scream, which was and you scream at the top of your lungs. Actually, John did it on his solo album, Well, 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 Oh, Well. And then at the end of it, he's well, 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 and he's screaming and stuff. So Harry lost his high end. He couldn't sing high anymore because he did the primal scream.
Oh, man.
So when we did demos, it was all baritone and tenor. Nothing with soprano or high notes. It was all low note stuff. So we did Mother-in-Law, Mother-in-Law. He did all these tunes, and Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? And he was actually going to call up Carole King and have her come over and do harmonies. But that fell apart, too. There was a lot of good stuff that we were going to do.
It's got to just blow you away at times as you're putting this book together and writing down the names of people you've spent time with. What are a couple of your favorite stories of some of the people you've played with?
Well, the Grammys. And Little Richard, I was on the road with Little Richard, and we did a bunch of stuff. And so we were invited to do the Grammys with Chuck Berry. And Little Richard and Chuck Berry were supposed to sing their hit records. Instead of Tutti Frutti Ah Rudy, it's Al Green, he's clean. So they changed the lyrics to all their hit records.
Reverend Al Green.
And so the rehearsal in a back room with an upright piano was me and Little Richard and Chuck Berry, just standing there, just the three of us. Chuck had his guitar. And, I said, okay, what key is Johnny B. Good? He says, I don't know. Try this one. And it was a B flat. So, strangely enough, it was in B flat. But Chuck didn't know what keys the stuff was in.
He just sang.
That's it. This is where it is. So that's how we did it. And to rehearse with Little Richard and Chuck Berry, just the three of us, it was like a full circle.
And you're playing keyboard in front of Little Richard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's really wonderful about this stage setup, the grand piano was on a moving platform, and it moved right to the middle of the stage, camera one, right there. And so, I was in the center of all these shots and everything. So that was very exciting. So
you must have some true rock and roll stories. Late night
about the drugs.
Well, we didn't get into that yet, but the late night parties that never ended.
There was a lot of stuff to do with girls. My editor said, you don't want to put that in the book. Even though I wanted to, he says, no, you don't want to put that in the book. Let's just do music. Because that'll
be a second book.
I had a lot of crazy stories.
The Women of Andy Cahan.
With girls.
With girls, crazy.
Give us one story.
I'll give you one story. We're in Colorado, and we just played a gig with the Sopwith Camel. Hello, hello.
Yep, yep.
And Leon Russell. And we're playing this gig, and this one girl comes back to my room. And, she did anything I wanted and all that stuff. And I says, would you like to meet the members of the band? She said, sure. So I called up everybody in their rooms and had everybody come to my room. And then I asked her to get up on the table and do a dance. And she did that.
But it was an artistic dance.
Oh, it had to be.
And then after that, it was all X-rated. She took turns with everybody.
While
we were all sitting there.
That's a music story.
That's a rock and roll story.
What year was that?
A week and a half ago.
3 or 4.
It was 2022. It was
just the last November.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was one of them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a story.
That's a story. So what are you doing today?
Today, I'm trying as hard as I can to sell that book.
The most famous musician you've never heard of,
Right.
available on Amazon.com.
It certainly is.
All of your favorite booksellers, Andy Cahan.
Yes.
So, but you've been doing some work with there's this group called the Dreamboats, Canadian boys, nice kids.
They're the best band I've ever seen in my life. I call them the Beatles.
Wait a minute,
I'm
wait a minute,
madly
wait a minute.
in love with this band.
Well, I'm going to call a timeout.
Okay,
Eddie.
call
Look at this
timeout.
book.
You can call.
You
Jimi Hendrix.
You have jammed with Ringo Starr. Yeah. You have jammed with Jimi Hendrix. You played with the Turtles for 40 years.
Yeah.
Little Richard.
Yeah.
And this is the
Dreamboats
best
are the
band.
best band you've ever.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Hands down.
Now that's incredibly high praise. Have they heard you say this?
That's all I did was brag to them. you know, I did the Grammy Museum with them.
Yes. Well, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get into that story for a moment.
Okay.
You did a book signing and concert at the Grammy Museum in L.A.
Yes, I
That's a big deal.
It's huge. Huge.
How did that come together?
Back in 2013, Howard Kalin, the lead singer of the Turtles, wrote a book called Shell Shocked. And he asked me to help him do the book signing at the Grammy Museum in 2013. So my book comes out, and I'm going through all my emails, and I find Grammy Museum in my emails. And I emailed Linda, the girl who I worked with Howard Kalin, and she said, send me a book. And then they said, yeah, we'll put you on. We'll do it. And so that's how that came about. It was amazing.
And so you invited the Dreamboats to do that with you.
Yes. I saw the Dreamboats about a year ago playing at the 420 or whatever, and they blew my mind because they all wear the same suits.
Yep.
And they're
kind of a clean-cut group. They do.
Very clean-cut, and they jump around stage, and they do perfect.
So they weren't at this party that you were talking about earlier.
No.
Right.
Too clean cut.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Now, these kids, and they do 60s rock and roll.
50s and 60s.
50s and 60s.
You know, from Rock Around the Clock.
Bobby Darin.
Yeah, the Everlys, Beatles, all the 60s stuff.
And they're originally from Canada, but they've moved down here, and they've been working at Agua Caliente, and they're a great group. They're terrific kids.
Actually, I'm going to go see Richie and Johnny tonight, right up the block at the Larkspur. They're playing from
the Larkspur, yeah.
Yeah, they're playing from 6 to 9 at the Larkspur, and I'm their biggest fan. I have a saying, the best of the best from the east to the west, way ahead of the rest. That's what I call the Dreamboats. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, they're just like really professional, really good, and sweethearts. There's no BS. There's no crap. They're just really nice guys.
Well, I'm going to tell a story out of school here.
Sure.
Every single individual in our newsroom, male and female, has a crush on the Dreamboats.
Really? I got to go see these guys.
Oh no! When the Dreamboats have come on Eye on the Desert, multiple people have come into the newsrooms like, let me know when they get here. The guys, the girls. I'm like, look, I don't know whether they're single. I don't know which way they go. I'm not sure I can introduce you, but
they're going to be here.
They're going to be here, and they've got a big following, and it's super cute.
You got to tell me next time they're going to be there. I'd love to come. I know,
because you have a crush on them now.
I do. Now I do. Yeah.
So anyhow, I don't know what you guys are doing, but 6 to 9, right up the block to the Larkspur, I'm going. And so they're doing a duo. They're doing a duo.
Yeah, so it's a group of 4 guys, right?
Well, the nucleus is Johnny and Richie, the guitar and drum. The rhythm guitar singer guy and the drummer are the nucleus, and they've been together like 18 years or something. You know,
they don't seem old enough to do that, but
they're in their 30s.
Yeah, but they got a young look about them.
Very young look.
Yeah, they're really good musicians.
And they all play drums, they all play guitar, they all play bass, and they all write and they all sing. They're just full of, yeah.
Before we wrap up, what brought you out to the Coachella Valley? You had this amazing journey with the Turtles and all of these other groups, and you're living the highlight. I mean, you've got a girl dancing on a table. and entertaining your friends, and then
And that was only one story.
That's
Pat.
one
Oh
story.
yeah,
That
there's
was-
more,
That
many
was
more.
page 14.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So what
This is a
got you out here?
podcast that I'm going to tell my wife she cannot listen to. This is
Yeah, so in 2005, my mom passed away, and I was living in Encino, paying $3,500 a month to live in Encino. Then my mom passed away, and I inherited her double-wide mobile home, $500 a month.
That's a better deal.
there's no every piece of math works out on that one. That's why you come. So you moved out here.
And then I started to advertise for my demo doctor business.
And you
Saying-
play around. You play. That came out wrong.
Oh, let's get back to the music.
You play various gigs
Yes.
around town.
Yes. Yes.
Well, clearly he played around. I mean, we heard the stories.
That's for a later broadcast.
I was the resident piano player at Clint Eastwood's Hog's Breath Inn in
In La
La
Quinta.
Quinta for 9 years. I was the guy for 9 years playing piano. So I built up a big following. And then, I ended up at BB's at the River with Jack Shrebnick and Billy Reed's
Yeah, of course.
and a lot. I played practically every venue in town.
Do any of your old friends come into town?
Yeah, I see this guy named Scooby who is 83 years old, and he's the guy who worked at the Musicians Union and got me with the Turtles and with Seals and Croft and all that stuff.
Seals and
Wait,
Crofts.
when did you play with Seals and Crofts?
Oh, that was right after Jimi Hendrix, before the Turtles.
Because their
So that
music
was
was
in the
so
60s.
similar.
Yeah, it was 1968, and
But Seals and Crofts really got big in the 70s.
yeah, but I met him in the late 60s, and we had a top 40 band that we played on Century Boulevard near LAX, and we played all, Rock the Boat Baby, all the top 40 then. And Jimmy Seals played the saxophone
Yeah.
and sang, and Dash played the drums. Wait. Yeah, Dash played the drums.
And their big hit was Summer Breeze.
Yes, and Summer Breeze, yes.
Not Summer Wind, Randy. It's a different
Right.
song.
So it's a great
it's not.
story. So we're playing this top 40 gig, and Jimmy was writing all the original music. So at the break, Jimmy and Dash would get up on stage with the mandolin and the acoustic and do the original Seals and Crofts stuff. So we're sitting at the table, and they belong to the Baha'i religion.
Yep.
And the leader of the Baha'i religion's name was Baha'u'llah, right? So we're sitting at the table, and Jimmy says to me, "Hey, Andy, we're trying to think of a name for the duo. What do you think of Baha'u'llah?" And I said, Abbott and Costello, Lennon and McCartney, Tom and Jerry,
Hall & Oates.
Hall & Oates. How about Seals and Crofts?
Seals and Crofts.
And he said, okay. So I was the guy who thought of the name Seals and Crofts.
That's awesome.
All right. We have to wrap up. And once again, we have another guest that we could do
8 or 9.
8 episodes.
Like I
with
said,
this
we're to
kid.
page 14.
I know. Well, we're going to do a whole Little Bar After Dark, and we're going to get all of the girls' stories. That's going to be a
Andy
whole.
will be our only guest.
That is going to be a subscription. You're going to have to pay for that.
Big Conversations only fans.
That's right. But honestly, I think we've finally found the way to monetize this thing right there. It's Andy's stories about the girls. Okay, Andy, what's your favorite music to play? You started out as a classical guy, and that was your love. But then you discovered rock and roll was the way to get the girls. What do you like? If you just had the opportunity, someone said, "I've got a venue, play whatever you want."
Beatles, British Invasion. I also love a song by Floyd Kramer called Last Date.
Floyd Kramer?
It's a really nice instrumental. I'm sure you would recognize it.
I'm sure I would.
Yeah.
No.
I don't, but I'm sure I would.
At
Yeah.
one point, I think I had a Floyd Kramer CD.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a nerd.
CD?
Oh,
Well,
vinyl.
I'm sure it was a vinyl. It was re-released on CD.
Oh.
Long after Floyd's passing.
Right.
So, all right, Beatles, but talk about British Invasion real quickly. Just some of the other bands that you loved out of that era.
Zombies, Kinks, Beau Brummels, Dave Clark 5, Chad and Jeremy. What is the other duo?
Herman's Hermits?
Hermits.
Peter Noon.
Which I became really good friends with because he would do the Turtle tours with us.
Wow.
So
I'm Into Something Good.
Oh yeah, he's great. He's really amazing.
Actually, they did I'm Into Something Good, The End of the World.
He had 11 or 12 number ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This has
Amazing.
been,
And he didn't write any of them.
no, he stole a lot of them.
Andy, this has been amazing.
The End of the World. I guess that was a Skeeter Davis.
Yes, it was. Don't say no, it's the end of the world.
But then Herman's Hermits did it. The Carpenters did it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's interesting. They all had hits with it.
That's right.
They all had hits with that song.
If Captain Slick had done that,
At the end of the
we
world,
might still be
it would have
around
been
today.
the end of the world.
See, the Turtles had a number one hit with It Ain't Me, Babe. No, 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 it ain't me, babe. At the same exact time, Johnny Cash had a number one with It Ain't Me, Babe. He did his own version. Same song.
And they
Bob
both went
Dylan
number
wrote.
one.
So at the same time, Turtles had number one, Johnny Cash was number one with the same song, two different markets.
Wow.
Pretty
Andy,
cool.
It is always so fun. I mean, no one's ever counted the number of Eye on the Desert episodes they've done. Andy has. He says 5. We had to have you on again.
You better
And once
start
again,
counting the number of episodes here. Yeah.
the most famous musician you've never heard of.
And if you Google it, it'll come right up.
So Google that. Buy his book. If you're a music fan, you're going to love the stories in this book. It is remarkable. And I can say this definitively. Andy is as nice a human being as you're ever going to meet. Buy his book because you're going to get some great stories, but he's a genuine guy.
Yeah, listen, even if he was an ass, this is a great book to buy, but he's a fantastic guy. So I would buy I did buy the book. That's why I have it. Andy, this has been amazing. And more than any other guest we've had, I think Patrick and I would both say, we got to have you back on here.
I'll do it
There's
anytime.
so much more to talk about.
Well, that's the one thing we know about it. I'll tell you, he'll show up at the opening of an envelope. Andy will come and do this show.
When is your cooking show? Thursdays?
I do it Wednesdays. Usually Wednesdays on
And what time do you hit the...
5:30. I try to do them. They're irregular these days. I'm not always around on Wednesdays, but during the pandemic, I started doing that. This is an online cooking thing I do on Facebook.
So your dachshunds are sitting there patiently while you're doing the show?
Yes.
And
waiting for fallout.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't have anything to plug.
Oh.
So
Come on. What are you...
Oh, wait, I'm on a podcast.
You're going to be playing golf at...
No, I'm going to be going to the U.S. Open. They're not going to let me play this year.
Oh, I'm sure they
I
will.
made kind of a fool of myself last
Oh,
time.
really?
At the U.S. Open?
U.S. Open, yeah. Andy, thank you so much for being here.
It's a
Patrick,
pleasure.
we did it again.
Randy, we have once again filled 45-plus minutes.
And
Great.
for anybody that's listening to this, thank you, but I don't know.
I was wondering where you were going with
I
that.
might need to talk to you, find out why you're sitting through 45
Randy and I have
minutes
had
of us.
so much fun doing
Oh,
these.
boy.
And once again, our thanks to Skip Page at Little Bar for hosting us. And it is always a great pleasure to spend time with you, Andy.
Oh, I'm honored.
You're the most
and-
famous musician that I have heard of.
Oh, and
So it's good to meet
congratulations on that new award thing.
Oh, the
you
Silver
just got.
Star. Thank you.
Yes,
very much,
that's
The
awesome.
Longevity Award.
Was that the one where
Congratulations.
everybody voted?
Yeah, there's a lot of voting on that. Yes, there was. So
That's so good.
Andy will be our
Yeah.
first guest on Big Conversations Little Bar After Dark.
Okay.
Looking forward to that.
Sure.
I think we finally found a way to make some dollars on this.
Midnight at Little Bar.
Do you have pictures, Andy? Can you bring in some pictures?
Sure.
He's got film.
Oh, I have pictures.
All right.
Okay.
Such a great time to be
Rock and
stopping
roll
the podcast.
Rock and roll.
And now we have to go. But listen, we'll be back again. We have a lot of great guests coming up in the future here on Big Conversations Little Bar. We appreciate your listenership.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Big Conversations Little Bar. Join Randy and Patrick next time as we keep the conversation going right here on Big Conversations, Little Bar.